In the quiet, untouched valleys of 300,000 BCE, where the wind whispered through the tall grasses and the sun spilled gold over jagged rocks, a solitary caveman stirred in the early dawn. His name was Boar, a figure of simplicity in a world that demanded attention to every rustle, every shadow, every twitch of movement in the trees. Boar was unlike the other members of his distant tribe. He had no rush to hunt, no restless need to craft complex tools beyond what was absolutely necessary. He preferred the rhythm of the earth to the chaos of ambition. Each morning, as the first light brushed the horizon, he would stretch beside the warmth of the small fire he had kept alive through the night, feeling the heat lick his sun-darkened skin and listening to the distant calls of animals waking from their nightly endeavors. To Boar, life was not about competition, survival in traditional sense, or the constant battle for dominance. It was about being awake long enough to appreciate the simplicity of existence, and then sleeping deeply without worry. Sleep, to him, was not a pause in life. It was life itself, as real, as tangible, as nourishing as the fresh water he drank or the berries he gathered. He had discovered, through a combination of instinct and observation, that the world outside, while thrilling, dangerous, and often violent, was also unnecessary when compared to the inner journey of rest. While the young, more energetic members of his tribe darted through the fields, dragging spears behind them and shouting, Boar would sit in the shade of a cliff, his back resting against a smooth boulder. Eyelids heavy, mind calm, body relaxed. The wind carried scents of earth, rain, and wildflowers to him, and he inhaled them deeply, letting them fill every cell, every muscle, every nerve. Here, in the soft glow of morning, he realized something his peers had yet to understand. Sleep, uninterrupted and undisturbed, was a power far greater than brute strength or fast reflexes. The birds sang, the insects buzzed, and Boar, lying on a bed of gathered furs, already prepared for the coming night, felt as though the universe had conspired to give him a perfect, restorative moment before the day's potential chaos even began. He thought about how, in the night, he would descend into a world that mirrored his surroundings yet was entirely controlled by his senses. Dreams would not chase him. Predators would not stalk him. The rhythm of his breathing would become a song, one that connected him to the soil beneath, to the roots of the nearby trees, to the sky above. In the grand scope of existence, where most creatures measured time by survival, Boar measured it by the depth of his slumber. And so, the day began for the caveman who cherished sleep more than fire or food, more than hunting or discovery. A day that would be long, serene, and above all, in preparation for night. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Boar's world seemed to slow in comparison to the frantic energy of his tribe. The others raced about, chasing small animals with sharpened sticks, wrestling over the juiciest roots, or squabbling for the warmest corner of the cave. Boar, however, moved deliberately slowly, savoring every step across the rough terrain. He collected water from a small stream that meandered lazily through the valley, its surface glinting like scattered jewels under the morning sun. Unlike his peers, he never spilled a drop. Each sip was a meditation, a tiny ritual of life he cherished. When he gathered firewood, he did so with care, selecting pieces that fit neatly together, imagining how they would burn evenly through the night, providing a long, gentle heat. He noticed things his tribe never did. The way a spider carefully wove its web, the rhythm of birdsong changing with the wind, or the subtle movement of clouds across the horizon. These small details filled his mind with calm, a sort of anticipatory serenity that prepared him for the night's forthcoming sleep. Boar understood intuitively that the body, mind, and senses were a triad, each dependent on the others. If he neglected one, the others would suffer. His muscles were supple from his gentle stretches and slow walks, his mind clear from observation rather than distraction, and his spirit untroubled because he understood his place in the world. While hunting might provide meat and crafting might provide protection, sleep provided something neither could, a continuity of self, a regenerative force that allowed him to exist fully in the day while already thriving in the night. The day's labor, which to his tribe was strenuous and exhausting, seemed trivial to Boar, almost ceremonial in its simplicity. Every movement he made, every breath he took, felt like preparation for the sacred act of surrendering to rest. Even when a distant roar from a large predator startled him, he did not panic. He simply adjusted his path, observed the tracks in the mud, and planned a detour, always conserving energy, always prioritizing balance over haste. The other cavemen envied his serenity, without understanding its source. They often laughed, called him boring, slow, or lazy. Yet Bohr knew they would never understand that in a few hours, when night fell and the valley was wrapped in darkness, he would enter a state of life far deeper than any hunt or skirmish could ever bring. And it was here, in this gentle pacing, that he honed his ability to slip effortlessly from awareness to sleep, from the chaos of day to the peace of night, a skill that would define him more than any spear or stone ever could. The midday sun beat down, warming the rocky landscape, and Bohr found his favorite spot atop a flat, sun-warmed boulder. From this vantage, he observed his surroundings in silence, noting the patterns of movement around him. A family of deer grazed cautiously on a distant slope, their ears twitching at every sound. Yet he felt no desire to chase them. Hunting was secondary to him. It was a task, a duty, not a source of satisfaction. He had eaten enough from foraging and the occasional catch, and his body was strong, nourished by moderation rather than excess. Bohr's thoughts wandered to the idea of rest itself. The tribe often spoke of sleep as a reward, something to be taken after exhaustion. But to Bohr, sleep was not a reward. It was the true work of life. In sleep, his muscles repaired, his mind sorted through images of the day, and his soul connected to the pulse of the world around him. Every sensation he experienced in waking life became sharper because of this sacred nightly ritual. Even the rough bark of trees beneath his fingers, the coarse furs he lay upon, or the sharp stones he occasionally touched were absorbed fully because his body was conditioned to notice the smallest textures before surrendering to slumber. As he rested there, the wind teasing strands of his coarse, dark hair, Bohr allowed himself a rare smile. The others might think him dull or slow, but he had discovered a richness in the ordinary. Every leaf rustle, every bird call, every ripple in the stream was a note in a symphony only he could hear, because he had trained himself to observe, to feel, and ultimately to rest. While the world beyond the valley was harsh, the valley itself, with its rolling hills, scattered trees, and sunlit waters, was a sanctuary, and Bohr treated it as such, not as something to conquer, but as something to harmonize with. By aligning his daily actions with the rhythm of nature, he conserved energy and preserved his vitality. When the sun began to dip, signaling the slow approach of dusk, Bohr was ready. His furs were gathered, his firewood stacked neatly, and his body primed for a night of rest that would last longer and reach deeper than any of his peers could comprehend. In these moments, he felt a thrill of anticipation not for action, but for stillness. As shadows stretched long across the valley floor, Bohr descended to his sleeping area, positioning himself atop the softest bed of furs, feeling the heat of the stones beneath and the coolness of the evening air above. The first crackle of fire ignited, and the day's energy began to ebb away, leaving space for the truest form of life, sleep. Night arrived like a gentle tide, enveloping the valley in darkness and silence. Bohr's tribe gathered around their small fire, sharing stories, laughter, and occasional quarrels. Yet Bohr's mind was elsewhere, already attuned to the subtleties of rest. He did not seek distraction. He sought preparation. He adjusted the furs beneath him, stacking them in layers for warmth and softness, and arranged stones to shield him from wind. Even the smallest details mattered, for in sleep, he was both observer and participant. The firelight danced across his face, revealing the rough edges of his features, the dark eyes that had seen much yet desired little, and the callous hands that had never rushed unnecessarily. While others squirmed in discomfort or argued over trivial matters, Bohr closed his eyes, drawing the sense of smoke, earth, and distant water. The world outside the cave became irrelevant. His heart slowed, his breathing deepened, and his muscles released tension accumulated over the day. Within moments, he was no longer merely lying on furs. He was entering another realm, a place where consciousness and dream intertwined seamlessly. In this world, he was both present and removed, existing fully yet without effort. Animals and natural forces did not threaten him. They became companions, part of the unfolding tapestry of night. The fire crackled gently, and sparks drifted upward, merging with the stars that pierced the darkness above. Bohr's mind, freed from the burdens of survival and competition, floated in a rhythm that mirrored the universe itself. Every heartbeat, every inhalation, became a note in an eternal song. In these early hours of sleep, he was invincible, not in strength or weaponry, but in clarity, calm, and connection. His tribe, unaware of the depth of his nightly journeys, continued their laughter and chatter, oblivious to the extraordinary experience unfolding just a few feet away. Yet Bohr did not seek acknowledgement or understanding. The magic of sleep was enough, a treasure that needed no sharing. Here in the darkened cave, surrounded by the warmth of furs and fire, the caveman had discovered a truth no hunting, fighting, or crafting could ever offer. The night, when embraced fully, was more rewarding than the day. And in this sacred practice, Bohr thrived in ways that history would one day struggle to quantify. In these nocturnal journeys, time had no meaning. Minutes stretched into hours, and hours collapsed into timelessness. Yet his body, lying perfectly still, absorbed the restorative powers of the night. Muscles repaired micro-tears, the mind consolidated experiences, and the spirit soaked in the quiet majesty of existence. Even external noises, the rustle of a nearby animal, the murmur of his tribe, were integrated seamlessly, neither disturbing nor distracting him. Bohr's sleep was active and passive at once, a duality few would ever comprehend. In this liminal state, he processed the day's observations, strengthened the memory of the skills he had practiced, and rehearsed survival scenarios without stress or urgency. Every dream served a purpose, refining his understanding of the world and his place within it. Unlike the rest of his tribe, who experienced anxiety in dreams or startled awakenings, Bohr's mind floated effortlessly, moving with the precision of flowing water, adapting to challenges, and enjoying the beauty of the imagined world. In essence, his nights were a form of life training, far more effective than waking practice or physical exertion alone. Here, he had power over his environment, control over time, and freedom to explore the deepest recesses of the mind. By dawn, when the first light would enter the cave again, Bohr would awaken refreshed, energized, and fully alive, an existence far richer than the majority of his tribe would ever experience in a lifetime. Sleep, he knew, was a craft, a skill, and an art form, and he was its master. Morning came quietly, brushing pale gold over the valley. Bohr awoke without a start, without groaning or frustration, as if he had merely been resting in a calm pool rather than sleeping through the chaos of night. The other cavemen, bleary-eyed and stiff from broken sleep, struggled to gather water, tend fires, or chase prey. Bohr, in contrast, moved smoothly, fluidly, and with energy that seemed endless. The clarity in his eyes, the suppleness in his limbs, and the calmness in his manner gave him an aura of quiet authority, one unrecognized by the tribe, but undeniable to anyone who observed. He had slept fully, deeply, and intentionally, and the benefits were evident in every aspect of his being. He could anticipate movements in animals, understand the subtle shift in wind and weather, and read the landscape with almost supernatural precision. Hunting, which consumed so much of the tribe's energy, was approached by Bohr as an extension of his awareness, not a frantic struggle. Even in food gathering, his hands were steady, movement precise, and actions purposeful. Unlike the others, who often returned with small rewards after considerable effort, Bohr's results were modest but consistent, gathered with efficiency and without stress. This balance of exertion and rest made him resilient. He rarely suffered fatigue, rarely fell ill, and never succumbed to the mental exhaustion that plagued his peers. In Bohr's understanding, sleep was more than a pause from life. It was the foundation of it. Without the depth of night he cultivated, he would have been no more effective than anyone else. But with it, he became capable of feats that appeared extraordinary in a world governed by brute force. The caveman who was boring by reputation was, in reality, living at a level that the others could not even imagine. He moved through life with a patience and serenity born of perfect rest, observing, understanding, and thriving in ways that would leave history whispering of his secret long after the last fires of his tribe had gone cold. Bohr's day unfolded slowly, deliberately, in ways that his tribe often mocked. While others rushed, argued, or displayed impatience, Bohr moved in harmony with the land. He observed animal tracks, noting their direction, size, and freshness, but never felt the compulsion to immediately follow them. Instead, he allowed time to pass, understanding that patience often yielded more than force or speed. His tribe, in contrast, expended tremendous energy chasing creatures that would often escape, returning exhausted and hungry. Boar's body, conditioned to the combination of gentle activity and deep sleep, required little effort to remain strong and agile. Even the rigors of climbing rocky slopes or crossing shallow streams were effortless, a testament to the restorative power of his nightly rituals. By midday, he would rest briefly in shaded clearings, allowing the sun to warm his skin and the soft wind to brush across his face. These moments were not idle. They were conscious pauses, a deliberate reinforcement of the equilibrium he had built between body, mind, and environment. As he observed the world in this way, he began to anticipate patterns others missed. The migration of birds signaling weather changes, the subtle movements of trees predicting rain, or the faint tracks of predators moving silently in the valley. All of these details were absorbed, cataloged, and processed subconsciously in preparation for the night. By evening, Bohr was ready for the continuation of what he knew to be life's most crucial period, sleep. And when night fell, as it inevitably did, he descended into a slumber that was far richer, more complex, and more restorative than anything his peers could ever experience. The night enveloped the valley like a velvet curtain, and Bohr lay atop his furs with deliberate care. He had learned over years that positioning, insulation, and the subtle layering of his surroundings could profoundly influence the depth of sleep. Each stone, each tuft of grass, each piece of fur was aligned precisely for comfort and protection. As the fire flickered, shadows danced across the cave walls. Yet Bohr's mind remained undisturbed. He was attuned to the smallest sounds, drips of water, distant animal cries. But these were neither threats nor distractions. They became part of the symphony of the night, complementing his descent into restorative rest. His dreams were intricate tapestries, merging the real with the imagined, the present with memory, creating scenarios that sharpened instincts and deepened his understanding of serve. In these nocturnal journeys, Bohr explored landscapes both familiar and fantastical, moving effortlessly through forests, valleys, and rivers. Every inhalation replenished him, every heartbeat harmonized with the rhythm of the world outside. He encountered predators in dreams, yet never with fear. Instead, he practiced strategy, observation, and understanding, as though sleep itself were a training ground for life. Unlike his tribe, who were haunted by nightmares, restlessness, or abrupt awakenings, Bohr's sleep was a deliberate art, honed through instinct, observation, and patience. By the time dawn approached, he would awaken with the clarity of one who had experienced centuries in a single night, ready to embrace the new day with energy and serenity unmatched by anyone else. Bohr's unique approach to life and sleep gradually began to influence his tribe, though they did not recognize it first. They noticed his unshakable calm, his uncanny ability to find food effortlessly, and his resilience to injuries or fatigue. While some dismissed him as lazy, others began to observe patterns. They saw that he often appeared stronger, quicker to react when danger approached, and remarkably patient in the face of adversity. Bohr never forced his teachings. He simply lived in a way that demonstrated the advantages of his methods. Over time, the younger members of the tribe, curious and impressionable, began to mimic his behaviors. They rested longer, observed more closely, and moved with more deliberation. Yet Bohr knew that true mastery of rest and awareness could not be taught directly. It had to be experienced. Each night, as he drifted into deep, restorative sleep, he felt the subtle satisfaction of knowing that he was nurturing something far greater than himself, a way of life that prioritized balance, mindfulness, and the regenerative power of rest. It was a quiet revolution, imperceptible to outsiders yet transformative within the small world of the valley. Seasons changed, rivers swelled and shrank, and predators came and went, but Bohr's dedication to deep sleep never wavered. Even in the harshest winters, when snow blanketed the valley and cold winds bit through layers of furs, he maintained his routine. He had developed techniques to conserve warmth, using carefully stacked stones, insulating furs, and strategic positioning near embers to create a microenvironment conducive to deep rest. Others struggled through sleepless nights, shivering and anxious, but Bohr embraced the cold as part of the natural rhythm of life. His body and mind adapted seamlessly, proving the resilience that proper rest and alignment with nature could achieve. Sleep was no longer a passive act. It was a form of preparation, defense, and empowerment. In the quiet hours before dawn, while the tribe remained restless and weary, Boar lay in serene darkness, his mind navigating the vast landscapes of memory, instinct, and imagination. Every night reinforced his mastery, and with each awakening, he emerged more capable, perceptive, and alive than those around him. To Boar, sleep was life magnified, a tool for understanding survival and appreciation of the world. Even in the presence of danger, Boar remained calm, confident in the foundation that his nightly rituals had built. One evening, a pack of wolves approached the valley, their eyes gleaming and movements precise. The tribe panicked, scattering in fear, but Boar assessed the situation carefully. He anticipated their path, observed their behavior, and selected positions that offered both protection and opportunity. When he finally moved, his actions were swift, deliberate, and effective. While others fled or attacked blindly, Boar navigated the encounter with clarity and control, a living testament to the power of a well-rested mind and body. The wolves eventually moved on, leaving the caveman unharmed, his calmness contrasting starkly with the panic of the tribe. Boar's mastery of sleep had not only enhanced his strength and perception, but had also granted him resilience and adaptability in moments where others relied solely on raw instinct. It was a subtle demonstration of how deeply rest could influence survival, proving that the night's restorative powers were as essential as any weapon or tool. As the years passed, Boar aged gracefully, a living example of how the integration of observation, patience, and deep sleep could extend vitality. His hair grayed slowly, his skin weathered naturally, but his strength and clarity never diminished. Even as younger, more ambitious members of the tribe exhausted themselves through constant activity and stress, Boar moved with ease, conserving energy and living fully through the cycles of day and night. His sleep remained profound, each night a journey into restoration and wisdom. Dreams became richer, layered with memories, intuition, and creativity. He explored the mysteries of his environment, anticipating weather, animal behaviors, and subtle changes in the ecosystem that eluded his peers. Boar's life was quiet yet extraordinary, ordinary yet profound, a testament to the overlooked power of mindful living. Through sleep, he connected not only with his body but with the world itself, tapping into a rhythm that defined existence more fully than the frantic pursuits of the waking hours. His tribe slowly recognized the truth in his ways, understanding that rest was not weakness, but a source of immense strength, awareness, and longevity. Boar's nights became legendary, if silently so. No words were spoken to describe the depths of his sleep. The tribe only observed the results in the form of his energy, clarity, and resilience. He inspired subtle changes in their habits, a pause before action, a moment of observation, a respect for quiet hours of darkness. Some elders, initially skeptical, began to appreciate the benefits, although few could replicate his mastery. Boar understood that sleep was both personal and universal, a bridge between body and mind, between awareness and dream. Each night, he traveled worlds unseen by others, processing experiences, refining instincts, and nurturing the wisdom that would carry him through life. By embracing the night fully, Boar transcended the ordinary limitations of his peers, demonstrating that existence could be richer, deeper, and more fulfilling when aligned with the natural rhythm of rest. His life, though simple, became a living lesson. The ordinary act of sleep, when honored, could transform survival into mastery. In the quietest hours before dawn, Boar often reflected on the nature of life, observing the interplay of light and shadow, sound and silence, motion and stillness. The valley, with its rolling hills, flowing rivers, and scattered trees, was a living classroom, teaching him patience, awareness, and the value of measured action. Every night sleep expanded his understanding, allowing him to anticipate dangers, optimize resources, and move harmoniously with the environment. The other cavemen remained caught in cycles of exhaustion and fragmented rest, unaware that the greatest tool for survival was already within them: the power of restorative, intentional sleep. Boar had discovered it early, practiced it meticulously, and lived its benefits fully. His simple, deliberate life was a quiet defiance of the chaotic, survival-driven patterns of his tribe, proving that mastery did not require constant effort, struggle, or competition. Instead, it required attention, patience, and reverence for the restorative power of the night. At the end of his life, Boar lay once again on his carefully arranged furs, the fire reduced to glowing embers, the stars illuminating the cave's entrance. He closed his eyes, not in fear of the end, but in acceptance of the natural cycle, fully aware that sleep, his lifelong companion, would carry him gently into whatever lay beyond. His tribe had grown to respect his ways, although they never fully comprehended the depths of his nightly journeys. Boar's mastery of rest had allowed him to live fully, age gracefully, and survive challenges that had exhausted others. In his final hours, he experienced a sleep more profound than any before, a convergence of memory, instinct, and connection to the earth. As consciousness faded, he felt neither pain nor regret, only the serenity of a life well aligned with nature. The valley remembered him, not through words or stories, but through the lingering sense of calm, balance, and awareness he left behind. Boar, the caveman who had the best sleep in history, had discovered the ultimate truth, that in surrender to rest, life itself could be magnified, deepened, and honored in ways no fleeting action could achieve.